And we are live here Thursday morning, April 9th, 2026, back in-house transportation. Still working on S326, miscellaneous motor vehicle piece. And we have some testimony this morning that wanted to come in and talk about sections 25 and 26, specialty use vehicles. And well, welcome to the first time in committee since I've been around.
Yes, it's been a long time since I was in this committee, actually. So for the record, Justin Johnson, I'm a lobbyist at MMR. In this instance, representing Rothspeed, which is a company based in Milton that builds cars. And we're here to support this section of the bill, this language. It would help us because right now we are not able to register our cars in Vermont, even though they're built here. They can't be registered here. And this particular section just cracks the door open a little bit. It doesn't allow you to use the car every day. Most of the people who would buy one of these cars probably isn't going to use it any day. There's at least 6 months of the year they're probably not going to use it at all. But they're sort of what it says, a specialty limited use sort of vehicle. But it does give you the opportunity to get it registered and drive it to events or on occasion. So that's why we really support this legislation. And the challenge for us is that, and I know the question came up a few days ago when this bill first came here about, well, can't we already do that? And the challenge is that a lot of what are called resto mods or, restored and modified cars are based on an existing car. So I have a 1976 Triumph TR6 in my garage. I could put a V8 engine in that if I wanted to, but it wouldn't change what it was registered as. It's still a 76 TR6. It has a VIN number and all that sort of thing. The cars that are built in Milton are not built from another car. They're built from scratch. And so they don't come with a VIN number from 1964 or 1972 or 1976. We have to apply to the state of Vermont to get a VIN number for them. And because they would have a 2026 VIN number, that means they're then required to meet all of 2026's requirements, whereas a car with a 1964 VIN number only has to meet 1964 requirements. It creates a challenge for us, particularly on the emissions side, not because the engines aren't certified, but because depending on the configuration of the vehicle and that, some of them don't even have OBD2 ports. And so there's no way for us to get them inspected because we can't pass emissions because we don't have a port to plug the computer into. And so they would automatically fail an inspection and therefore wouldn't be able to be registered. So what these sections do is define the vehicle, say that it has to meet all the safety requirements, and then but it doesn't have to have the emissions inspection done. And we did talk to ANR, who's in charge of the emissions piece, before we brought this in, and they were open to doing it because it was a very small number of vehicles. So it's not just our vehicles, but it's limited to 12. In California, they have a waiver process for vehicles that is limited to 500. But as it turns out, there's a lot more cars in California than there are in Vermont. So when you do the math, 500 vehicles in California is equivalent to 12 vehicles in Vermont. So that's how that number was arrived at, just as an example.
Representative Wells.
What do those cars look like? These vehicles look like you're talking about?
So they look like a second generation Corvette. So say a 66, 67 Corvette. The car is actually, I'll tell you a little bit about the car. It's actually slightly wider, about 6 inches wider. That's to allow for a bit more comfort inside. If you've ever been in a 66 Corvette, they're pretty tight. And also to allow for some safety equipment because there's more safety equipment and in a modern car than there is. The chassis is all completely designed in Milton. Like the only thing on the chassis that's not made here are the ball joints. They come from GM, and the struts basically and springs. Everything else, all the control arms, all the tie rod ends, all designed and made here in Vermont. And then the body is all carbon fiber. It weighs, the body weighs about 200 pounds. So it's pretty light, very expensive. It's not made in Vermont. It was all designed here. All the molds were made here, but they're made out of state because there's no facility in Vermont that could actually has the technical ability at the moment to make them. So then the bodies come back, they get attached. The engines, that's another thing that they don't make the engine. They buy the engine from GM. So it's a certified engine. And it's up to the customer a little bit about what they want in terms of engine. They can range anywhere from 525 horsepower up to about 1,500 horsepower.
Wow.
We should get her.
How many make a year of those and what do they cost?
So they start at about 600,000.
Yes.
So they're not,
Get what you pay for.
which
Yeah.
brings me back to you're not driving it every day sort of thing.
I'd want to. Okay.
And I think you have to get signed up with a baseball team to be able to afford one. But you got to.
Bill, have an in with Bill Lee.
Brett Burke, you're up. Well,
Yeah, like when you said they can't test the onboard diagnostic. So how many miles have they driven in the state? I mean, do you have any idea? I mean, I'm talking about the potential air pollution from the exhaust.
Right. So keep in mind the engine is an EPA certified engine. I don't know that I don't have a number on the number of miles. I mean, it's not very much in the state because you can't register them in the state.
Most
So
people in Vermont couldn't afford.
Well, true. And right now they have the capacity to make about 12 a year. But frankly, of these particular cars, one or two is likely to be registered in Vermont. One that they would register just so they could have it. So they have an example, and then maybe, I mean, I don't know. There absolutely is not a big market for them in Vermont because you do have to have a fair bit of money to buy one. And they go up from that figure because some people want to add things, change things around, but they're a modern car. Like they have ABS, they have traction control, they have all of the sort of modern things you would expect in a car. They have the electronics in them has all been made and developed for this car. Sort of oddly enough, given that I'm Australian, by an Australian company that has built, so all the dash, it's all digital. It has a lot of things you can control. And you can certainly keep the emissions well under what would be required, like for a Vermont inspection, but you could also go over depending on how it's configured. So, but in conversations with ANR, for instance, ANR does not require emissions on off-road vehicles, and in a racing situation, you don't have to do this. And even like you buy a John Deere tractor, a little garden tractor, your three-cylinder diesel engine, these cars would be a lot cleaner than that. And they don't have to have it. They don't have emissions on them either. That what made them okay with it is it's such a small number, like, 12 vehicles, enables them to meet their state implementation plan for the Clean Air Act. It doesn't impact that. And so that's why they're okay with it. But
Maybe they should make electric.
so that may well happen at some point. It's certainly something they've thought about. And the challenge is the motor is actually great for that, like, because they're small, they're light, they're fast. The batteries are more of a challenge in terms of where you put them in the car, what impact they have on the weight and everything. This car is, if you're a Corvette sort of aficionado, you would look at it and say, there's something wrong with that. It doesn't look right. But for a lot of people, they'd look at it and say, oh, that's a Corvette. So we did get it licensed by GM because it looked so much like one of their cars. In order to do that, they wanted one. We had to take it out to Michigan. So the head of the Corvette chassis engineering took it for a 40-minute drive around their test track out there and wanted to know which university the engineers went to that built it. That would be Milton High School.
That's right.
Wow. So has Senator Brennan seen this? I'm just thinking about his
He has seen it, yes.
fondness for.
Right. It's a subset of the Vermont population, obviously, that would be interested in a much smaller one that may ever buy one. But we just felt that it'd be really nice in a state where the thing is built that we'd be actually able to register one or two. So that was sort of the genesis of the language.
Yeah, it's fascinating and quite a story for where they're built. Are there other companies doing this? So this is 12 a year.
Right.
Who else would qualify for that?
So my understanding is that there is a company out in California that makes, I think it was Damien, the Ledge Council I mentioned, that there's a AC Cobra replica. If you've seen the movie Ford versus Ferrari, Carroll Shelby had those cars, like a original one of those costs about $3 million. You can build a replica for about $50,000. And so there's a couple of different companies that do that. And I'm sure there's others around. There's a one that does old Broncos, like Ford Broncos. Yeah. And so arguably,
So there are some others.
there are a few around.
That you're aware of in Vermont.
No, not in Vermont. They're around the country. And then arguably, if a Vermonter bought one of those cars, they could register it under this language. I think the 325 relates to there's a federal act for small manufacturers that enables them to not have to do all of the same they don't have to safety test the whole car as a car. They safety test components like the seat belts and the airbags and all that are tested but they don't, once they're all bolted in, they don't have to wreck.
You don't have to crash them.
Right, you don't have to crash cars. And that regulation says that you can only sell 325 in the US and no more than, I think, 5,000 worldwide. So we, obviously for Vermont, we're not thinking about worldwide sales. The 325, it just, because it lined up, it seemed to make sense to use the same number, even though it feels like a sort of random number. It would be a small number no matter what, anywhere. And I can tell you in California, their experience was that in the first couple of years that there was available, they actually ran out of permits in the first, before the end of the year, like they hit their 500 before they got, but it would seem that a lot of that was sort of built up sort of demand, because nowadays I think you can go in pretty much, any time of the year and they always have some available because they don't hit 500 in a year.
Is that 500 new each year? Is this meant to be 12?
No, it's 500. No, so it's 500 new ones. So, because once you have it, it stays with that car for life. Like that car, if you keep it registered, if you pay your $26 a year. So it would be adding no more than 12 in any 1 year added on.
That was a question because the certificate of registration for not more than 12 limited use specialty vehicles per year. But that does not mean you're really trying to separate, not renewals, just 12 totally new registrations.
My understanding is it would be 12 new. So you've got whatever you've got and you wouldn't add any more than 12 a year.
And I guess I'm just saying I'll have to go back to Damien again on that, but I didn't think it was clear whether these were additional or these were for the,
Yeah, well, I think
if you registered 4 this year and 4 now, like in 3 years, you got 12. There were
Right,
12
so
renewals, but
I think, so I guess,
12 new ones, and I guess it's not clear is what I have my note in here. was this intended that it would be 12 new ones each year, not counting any renewals?
I think that's certainly up to the committee. I would say 12 in total forever would be problematic because, as you say, in 3 years, I mean, in 12 years, it means you're only doing one a year, which I think would be lower than what I think the demand
Well,
might
in
be.
section 26, I'm not sure it's entirely clear to me, but maybe it is. I'm not sure I'm reading it right. Representative Keach.
I think it's slick rig. I saw it last year when it was here. And I guess I did think it was a Corvette, but I did think there was something different about it, but they're a little on the expensive side, but do you have a scratch and blemish sale at all ever? Or-
Yeah. Well, Scott Roth, who's the owner, did actually scratch one down at Miami Homestead Speedway last year when he took it for a spin. So I don't know. The problem is carbon fiber is really expensive, and this car, all the body, all the dash, it's all carbon fiber. The bumpers, everything. I think all up, the whole thing weighs just under 2,400 pounds.
How do you keep it on the ground?
Or like side by side.
Right. It weighs about as much as a early 2000s Mini Cooper with a slightly larger engine. But it has good engine management. With the engine management, you can set it so it drives like a Corolla, even if you floor it, it'll barely move.
Wasn't sure if you wanted.
Yeah, I have a question, but I think it might be for our pledge council, just, maybe it's somewhere in here, I didn't see it. Definition of specialty vehicle.
I think the first section that introduces this talks about a definition.
Oh, yeah, it's just above, you're right,
That's in 25, yeah.
okay.
And my confusion is on 26.
6, right, in the actual number. Yeah.
I feel like that needs to be clear.
New or,
No more
Yeah,
than
I think if we put.
12 additional ones per
Yeah,
year or something.
Because it says the commissioner shall issue a certificate of registration, so that doesn't say new registration, that just says registrations. So we maybe want to just put one word in there saying the commissioner shall issue new.
No more than
No more
12 new registrations a year. So, yeah, that would work I think that would,
Regional.
Yeah, until we get to 500.
Representative Keiser is up.
12.
Never.
Representative Keiser, you all set?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Representative White and then Representative Powell.
Yeah, thank you. So this company is Rothspeed, is that?
Mhm.
And it sounds like they're making these very specialized cars. There are other companies that repurpose existing cars, but this is the only one in Vermont.
It's the only one in Vermont that I know of, yeah.
And so who's the market and what do they do with these cars? Are these really like to take to a car show or drive out on a Sunday morning?
So some of them, I don't know all of the people, but I think just generally speaking with these sorts of cars, some people use them for track days, so they take them to race tracks. Some people will take them to car shows. Some people would drive them occasionally. I mean, none of my friends, I have to say, but there's a lot of vehicles, whether it's Ferraris or Aston Martins or any of that reach this sort of money, and some of them a lot higher that people own. But I think for this particular vehicle, I think the track day thing is a likely to be one, because it's very capable track car. I mean, it drives really well on a racetrack.
And it's fast. You were saying
It's fast, yes. It's fast.
but also very light. So
Yeah, light and
so highway driving, I wouldn't want to come into contact with another car if it's that light.
well, if I'd spent 600 grand, I wouldn't want to come into contact with anything.
I mean, we don't want to.
But yes, it's not something that you would, it's got safety features built in, and it has ABS and traction control and all that sort of thing. And it has, but yes, you want to be careful with it, I would have thought.
Because the weight of this car versus a normal car, you said that's 200.
Well, that was just the body. The car itself, 2,400 pounds. I mean, there's lots of cars that weigh that. They tend to, I mean, that Triumph TR6 I have weighs less than that. But I wouldn't want to hit anything in it either. I mean, it makes, a Chevy Silverado looks like a monster truck when I'm driving that TR6.
And you said they use an existing like General Motors
Engine, yeah.
engine and that's a modern engine. So
Yes, oh yeah, yep. Yeah, we use modern engines. We actually it uses a BMW transmission because we found them to be really bulletproof and work really well and can handle the power. But yeah, and then all the differential and the rear end is all built in-house. They have a CNC machine that is running all the time, making parts.
And so the challenge is that these have not been able to be registered in the state of Vermont because they don't come with a VIN number.
Well, they have to, you have right now in the state of Vermont, if you have a 2026 model car, you have to plug it in and get pass the emissions test in order to pass inspection in order to be registered. If you have an old car, you don't have to do that because they didn't, pre-1996, I think it was, they didn't even have OBD ports. But so what all this does is get you out of the emissions inspection. It doesn't avoid the safety inspection. So, we have DOT, Federal Department of Transport approved glass and everything. So it's not going to break in ways that are, extra dangerous or anything. That's all had to be specially made because you can't just buy a regular Corvette window because this one's wider. So all that sort of stuff. So.
I think there was already a couple of questions from Representative House, Representative Casey, and then
I
Representative
have a
Coy.
question and a comment. So these would still have to be, go through the annual safety inspection.
Yes, they would have to be inspected.
Not the plug-in,
Yep.
yeah. This seems all reasonable. I mean, I really have to drive one to know when. Just say it.
Good try.
It's
Too bad they let that Milton Speedway go down.
Yeah.
Got them out state.
You can have a look at
2A.
Representative Casey, you're up.
So you're saying fast, how fast is fast?
180.
That's a great question. I think mathematically around 180, 190, but without a speedway to test it on, I don't know that anyone's actually been all the way up there. And you would want to do that in a pretty safe place. You wouldn't want to just do that driving down the road. So the guys out of GM may know, but I don't know. But they were really impressed with the car.
Is it the big SPM crate motor you guys are using? Is it
2 years back.
eight something?
Nobody's here.
Yeah, that's
I don't know.
one of the options, and you can get it either naturally aspirated or turbocharged.
Just GM though, right? It's just
lost it.
We've started with GM because it was a sort of GM vehicle.
you know how to make power.
I do want to point out, go ahead, Representative Coy.
So these are kind of like Jay Leno would buy this.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be great.
And along that line,
Yes, that's all guys.
That's right.
Should send them a pamphlet.
We had the car at the big car show, the SEMA show out in Las Vegas last year in November. And a guy walked up on the last day, which is the one day that's open to the public, and said, "Oh, how much is this? Because I just sold my McLaren. It was
There you
all
go.
janky and kept breaking down. So I got rid of that. How much are these?" And they said the price. He goes, "So can I just give you a check right now? How's that work?"
Why, yes.
Perfect.
Have to wait 3 days and you can pick up the car.
Yeah.
Point out in section 26, I guess at the end, the last sentence, of course, is not to exceed 1 day a week. So, we're not talking about pleasure use. It
Right, I
doesn't
mean,
work very well for a weekend car show, huh?
you only have to use half of one day and half of the other.
Yeah, you.
I
The show.
would not be opposed to that number being slightly higher, but
It does
the idea.
hard. If you could bring one to the car show on the Swanton Village Green, this July 19th.
19th, got it.
That would be pretty impressive. But we would be able to make that an extra day so that you could drive up one day.
Back the,
I would hold it for you and you could drive it back the next day. But I don't know, does it really work 1 day a week? Is it, we should say that, or should it say something else? Or is that anybody's got a problem one way or another? Nobody's gonna be able to tell, but I don't. You're going to a car show, you gotta get there and get back.
Once a week to church and,
Well, you're gonna wanna pray if you're going 190 on a road in Vermont.
So I do have a question on that. So it doesn't have a vehicle ID.
yes, it gets a Vermont, the Vermont DMV will issue a VIN
A
number.
vehicle,
Yeah.
a VIN number. Okay, that was my question. Once it goes through.
And they have an
the
existing
registration
process for doing
Okay.
that, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Who's, I personally, I don't have, I think you should be able to drive it more than once a week. I mean, I don't even know how anybody would even know unless you're got law enforcement living next door.
I think,
You wanna park at
I mean-
his house.
if you ask me, I think the fact that it says not for, daily commuter use
Yeah,
Unless
or
they
to
let
cover,
you
I mean,
take
that's the point is you're not driving it every day. Well, we would be totally fine with that because as I said, I don't think the people who drive by these are driving them every day. I mean, it's just not the sort of thing you would drive every
They
day.
have something for Tuesday, something.
Right, for Wednesday, yeah, that,
Depends on the color.
yeah.
And do we,
McLaren's a winter car.
another question.
There's some
Do we put limits on antique?
We do have limits. I'm not sure if
What
it
are
says
they?
1 day, but there is
Could we
existing
just
limits on.
Model after an antique car?
That's what I was, we need to get like a side by side. We
Yeah.
got all these regulations.
Like because there's antique, there's hot rod, which is pre-1934.
Gotta get Damien to do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
Because I don't know why we're limiting this one if we're not limiting the
Yeah.
dates.
What's the demand on these? Is it just like a
They can
backlog
be
of
made.
orders?
No, this is pretty small.
Right.
I need a small number of orders, like where,
So you're not even approaching 12 a year? I mean, just.
no, not yet.
How many employees do they have?
I'm not sure that I don't know, I'd have to check.
$600,000.
I mean, I think, carbon fiber, the body itself, just to produce all that is probably close to $200,000. Like just in materials and workmanship on the carbon fiber, because it's, carbon fiber is expensive. It's why cars, just regular road cars don't have it. It's really light. It's stronger than steel. It's a great product. They use it in Formula One cars, but those things cost gazillions of dollars. There's a reason why these things are really expensive. And so, for Scott, it was all about doing the absolute best he could do. And we'd love to get the price a little lower, and there's work being done to try and do that. And part of it, but it's a fairly manual process at this smaller volume. You're not just pumping out parts out of a press. You're sort of making them and sometimes tweaking them to make to improve it over time. But it's small volume, high cost.
Field trip.
Has Governor Scott ever asked to drive?
I'm not sure if he's driven one, but it was Governor Scott who actually introduced me to these guys and said, you should go up there. So I'm not going to
He's
tell
aware.
him, but I've driven one.
Yeah.
I have, yes.
Oh, wow.
Look at the smile on his face.
Couple of times.
So do you have any, say, stories or, somebody came to, Scott and said, I want to buy one, I'm from Vermont, and they said, oh, no, you can't because it's not registered. Now, I'm just trying to figure out what problem we're trying to solve here. It sounds like there's very few that are being built, and there are any cases where somebody's been denied trying to buy.
I don't think that's happened.
Yeah.
I will say that the number one problem that it would solve for us is we could register the one that we would drive around here.
Yeah.
And actually be able to drive it and, you know, have
Well, I
people.
do see that there's a Vermont license plate on one of these cars.
Yeah, but that was just for the picture.
All right.
Yeah.
That's
anyways.
usually the case, because I did see it in the flyer.
Yeah,
Can't sell it if you- you can't
license
sell it if you
plate
don't.
belong to that vehicle.
Yeah,
no, that's right. It was just for the picture.
Oh.
So,
Okay,
Because
that was the question.
yeah.
That's when I put my plate on, just for the police officer to see it.
Yeah.
that's right. I got a whole collection on one of mine.
Can you have any color you want as long as it's that color?
You can have any color you want. No, yeah, we've moved on from Henry Ford. You can have a different color. In fact, we had a different color out at the SEMA show because they wrapped it. That's the other thing you can do these days is just wrap cars and then change the color as often as you like.
So as fun as it is, it sounds like there's at least 2 or 3 things in the section that we are gonna wanna follow up on. Whether it's 12 new or 12 total, whether it's
One day or not all the time. Yeah.
or not, and how it compares to how show car, antique car.
Antique car, yeah.
And any other specialty issues we have out there besides those.
Yeah.
That
Well, happy to come back at any time. And if you have any other
we
questions,
want to include it, we gotta probably answer those 2.
Maybe I can give us a ride.
We don't want to revisit it again.
we'll have to get it back down here.
Yeah, we don't want to revisit the language again in a year, 2 years, or 3 years.
Right. No.
So let's try to button that up, and if we're gonna revisit it, it would be in a field trip, not,
Hey, there you
There you
go.
go.
not in the language again.
It is impressive.
Lawful field trip.
Make a note of those 2 or 3 things. Okay, well, thank you unless there's more questions. Thank you very much for coming in this morning.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Keep me posted on scratching down.
There you go.
Take a few minutes. Looking at the sections, I'm particularly looking at the summary, but sections, there's 30 sections. We know that section 24, we're gonna spend a fair amount more time on the inspection manual piece. We obviously just made a note that we're gonna have to spend a little bit more time on this, section 25 and 26. And 27, I guess it is, right? These go together. What else are people, does anybody else have anything on? There's a few other sections we still haven't heard from the DMV on, but if there's a particular area or concerns or questions or things that we want to make sure that we're revisiting, 1 through 6, I don't think we're touching again. It's already been gone through language in multiple pieces. Did anybody, Smuggler's Notch always generates quite a bit of interest. But I don't know that we need to or not need to. People want to hear more about that. I did already get another email and a couple more things on this salvage title issue. So these are some of those things that I don't know anything about, but boy, when you mention them out, somehow the word travels. So I've gotten requests for more testimony on the salvage title. So there's more people coming in on that. I don't know anybody else that has a particular strength or interest in that, but it does seem to affect people out there. I'm getting emails on it. Can we look at this section? Can we look at that section? Or can we look at this part again? There's a liability question on the insurance. There's a question on the need for the title. Now there's a question on the value of whatever's left. So I'm sorry. But
And Damien's gonna run over the last few sections.
Yes,
that we have
this afternoon.
covered.
at 3:30, we're gonna finish the last couple of pages. I'm sort of jump starting. This will be the conversation after that. We're having it a little bit sooner than you don't have to answer it right now, but if somebody knows, we're gonna hear more on section, we haven't got to section 29 yet. I don't know if that tinting on 28, so 28, 29, 30, we'll hear this afternoon, and we'll pick it up from. But I'm looking to hear if you want to let me know outside of the committee or even now, if there's some ones that you're looking for more attention on. Representative White, sorry, I should have got ahead of you. Representative White, you're up, and then Representative McCoy.
Just questioning, did we want to have someone from A&R in to address the emissions based on that conversation we just had regarding those?
I was going to plan on having them in about inspections in general and their comment, and particularly, even though we're not yet looking at that other bill, but what their comment on how 2 years would impact that, and if they can update us on what they're following in New Hampshire. So I was gonna have them
Great.
hit on about 4 or 5 things.
Okay.
Give us a plan.
And then we had also talked about speaking with someone in law enforcement or with the Coast Guard on the flotation devices.
There are, yep, that's a good one to mention. That is, there are multiple working their way on the agenda for that one. They're all small, short, but there's multiple. That's in 21. 21's got more people coming. So. Representative McCoy?
So I had brought up when we were talking about the motorboat registration sticker, where it was gonna be on the boat. You mentioned motorcycle. And how people were concerned.
Oh, we should ask.
These people, I mean, I don't know if there's anything we can do, or if they've done anything already with that. So,
Jim, you said there was a place to put those or instruments or something?
They used to want you to put them on one of the forks. Put on the,
Yeah.
and Harley guys are chrome. They don't want stickers under chrome, so there's right by your shifter on the left there, there's a little plate that
but I
has a
don't
little
know.
tab that bolts into an existing bolt and it sticks out like a little flag, and you put your,
Yeah, I don't know. I know that was an issue.
Yeah, but which way?
Years ago, maybe just double check that.
Just on the inspections, do we have a plan for, and folks coming in to testify? I mean, I think it would be really helpful to hear from mechanics directly on that. I think
We do not have
Suggestions.
the plan has not been set yet, other than that is going to get significant time, so
Okay,
absolutely, by all means, hand out any, or suggest anybody who'd like to represent, please.
hopefully Damien's getting an answer on, whether the person that's doing the inspection is gonna be held liable over, remember how they were talking about the day of inspection, you might have something that's marginal, but it passes that day. And he was talking about, the mechanic making a suggestion that maybe your brakes are wearing out or whatever, and I was kind of looking for some clarity on that. It sounds like a liability, an added liability to the mechanic. Yeah, he just didn't have an answer for it.
That's what I'm looking for, is anybody else has got some things hanging out there that we want to make sure are answered, in addition to the ones we're already headed towards. So we are then. You got another break for 15 minutes till 11 o'clock. You guys are early. Oh, well, wait a minute. Want to go that way or you want to go that way? Which way?
Let's go.
Yeah. Okay.
Thumbs up. We'll start early. All right. We'll have a longer lunch break. By all means. Who wants to go first? In which direction? You look at your agenda, we're just, went from me being very late to being way ahead of schedule.
Getting extra lunch, so no one's gonna complain.
Yeah. I have not been able to bring any regularity to the schedule lately, so. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, it is. Good morning.
Transportation, we are still live and have been during our little discussion, and but we're looking at where we at here, section 20 and 21. Wouldn't that be where I could say, well, Representative White, ask and you shall hear, or you, whatever it is, right? There we go. Okay.
Good morning. Thank you so much for not only having me, but for the clear and serious recognition you're giving to this very important bill. My name is Jess Lucas, and I am the Director of Aquatics at the Greater Burlington YMCA. I am here today in support of S326, the bill that proposes to require all individuals on board a vessel between November 1st and May 1st to wear a personal flotation device, life jacket. We don't often talk about water safety the same way we do instill in adults car seat education. We don't talk about water safety in the same way we fit children for bicycle helmets and tell them why it's so important to wear when riding. We don't talk about water safety in the same way we explain to look both ways before crossing the street. We don't talk about water safety. Drowning is a silent tragedy. Prevention of drowning is possible, but it requires time, coordinated effort, money, and state-level leadership, as stated in the 2022 report on water safety in Vermont, published by Safe Kids Vermont. What began as a collective partnership between the Vermont Child Fatality Review Team and Safe Kids Vermont has grown into the Water Safety Action Committee, which for the past 3 years has worked to identify reasons for the morbidity and mortality of children and adults from drowning and recreational activities in our state. Vermont has limited state level legislation related to water safety. As a result, guidance often relies on local ordinances, insurance company mandates, and/or personal choice. The Water Safety Action Committee works through a coordinated partnership that includes Safe Kids Vermont, Vermont Child Fatality Review Boards, the Greater Burlington Y, Live Like Benjo Foundation, the Children's Hospital, Vermont Department of Health, and the University of Vermont Health Network, Vermont State Police Marine Division, and Swim Like Annie Incorporated. Together, we are working to reduce unintentional drowning deaths, hospitalizations, and emergency department visits across the state. The goal is simple: to prevent drowning in our communities. Vermont has 7,100 miles of rivers and streams, as well as 242,219 acres of lakes, reservoirs, ponds, and 300,000 acres of freshwater wetlands. The moment the sun comes out and air temperatures rise, we are all enjoying the outdoors. We do not come inside until the snow falls. Currently, only children under the age of 13 are required to wear a life jacket when boats are underway. S326 proposes that for cold weather on or before May 1st of each year and on or after November 1st of each year, all individuals aboard a vessel while underway, and if an individual is on open deck, shall wear a properly secured, wearable, U.S. Coast Guard approved personal flotation device as intended by the manufacturer. As a committee, cold water life jacket legislation became a primary focus because of its attainability. There are zero reasons to not take this small step to protect one another. It is simple, it is effective, and it saves lives. Cold water shock is a major factor in boating fatalities when temperatures are less than 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Cold water shock causes involuntary gas, often resulting in aspiration of water, hyperventilation, breathlessness, and a reduced ability to control your breathing and swim. A life jacket worn properly greatly increases your chance for survival in cold water, while also increasing the amount of time for you to be rescued. A life jacket buys us time. It keeps you afloat if you lose your sense of recognition of what to do. When disoriented, panic takes over. In cold water, when the body and brain are no longer working together, a life jacket can mean the difference between life and death. Life jackets are the extra layer of protection that could save a life. In closing, as a representative of the Water Safety Action Committee, I believe safety is everyone's responsibility. I support this bill because we want everyone to get home safely each and every day. Thank you.
Not sticking around for questions, huh? Representative White.
Yeah, thank you, Jess. That was really helpful. So we reviewed this language a little earlier in the week, and my question was on the dates. You know, recognizing that May 1st, it's still pretty cold in Lake Champlain. So do you feel like these dates proposed are the correct dates, or should those be modified? Just as you said, when the sun comes out, people get excited, and early May in Lake Champlain is probably causing hypothermia.
Oh, absolutely. We picked these dates because neighboring states who have this law, these are the dates that they utilize. Certainly extending it into June where we live would help. But based upon other states, kind of the May 1st, May 15th is the dates that they have laws in place.
Yeah.
So somewhat following what's been successful for those states. That's how we pick these dates. Certainly our goal would be all adults all year in life jackets, but that's simply not attainable. And so it just based upon what other states have found successful.
Because I'm thinking we would probably be similar to Maine, but Rhode Island, Massachusetts, those are, warmer climates, so.
Correct. And I was just in New York and they have a May 1st. I actually went paddling last Saturday. It was lovely and freezing cold, and theirs is a May 1st. Thank you.
A quick question, any good legislation is predicated off of education and people being aware that we have a law on this. You said you're on the Water Safety Committee. What role would you play as far as, do you hand out brochures or, making the public aware that if we do move forward, that it's now a law?
Exactly. So publications put out by, say, the state parks, many of them have a paddling brochure. So it would be included in that. In this day and age, social media is a big piece of it. So in recent years, when we've had some tragedies, we've seen places like the Coast Guard send information out, making people aware of the dangers. And in an ideal world, if we can say, these are the dangers and this is how you can protect yourself, and it's a law, then hopefully people will abide by the law. That's not always true. So education is a big piece of it. So looking at getting information in newsletters all year, but certainly this is the prime time of year to do that education in state parks. Through the recreation departments would be another one. A lot of them operate their ponds, their river access points, perhaps some signage that would come at an expense. And we, of course, question, who reads signs all the time? So it would really be that education around this is to keep all of us safe. And it buys you time as an individual to stay afloat, and the worst case scenario to be easily rescued.
Yeah, I mean, just this last week, I think we had a drowning death kayaking, and we were talking about one a couple of years ago. That was quite a tragedy. And, do you have any data that says, they didn't have their flotation device on, or how often it happens in cold water where, hey, they might have been saved or they might have saved themselves?
Absolutely. Al has some data points in the slides that he's going to show. And a lot of it is around the time and thinking about not only the time, but also the expense. All throughout the winter, rescue boats are not in the water. And so in the case of this weekend, from what I've read, she absolutely had a helmet on. She had a life jacket on, and she was able to be retrieved because she was floating. Whereas unfortunately, if she was not wearing that life jacket, retrieval would have been much more difficult. It would have taken longer, and it would have put in more people at risk. When you start having rescuers have to go in the water, it's swift moving. And so just that buying of time, which is hard to quantify because we can't run that experiment. But if we think about those factors, they definitely do help. And the tragedy a few years ago, you might be referring to the grandparents. I would like to hope that life jackets could have had an outcome. But again, we don't know. What we do see, though, is that people who have life jackets on can be helped much easier.
Representative Lally and then Representative Casey.
Yeah, I just, so I live literally across the street from Shelburne Bay, which is, you know, at this time of the year, kind of an attractive nuisance with all the kayakers who are out there in, you know, tank tops and shorts and the water is as cold as this. So I'm kind of wondering, I've got to think a lot of people just have no idea how dangerous this is. And I'm wondering if your organization does any outreach and thinking of social media with just letting people know that they really ought to be thinking about a wetsuit, honestly, or at least, I mean, ideally a dry suit, but you know, just something that would really connection with this.
Absolutely. The paddling community can be a challenging one to infiltrate. And in general, getting the word out. There's almost too many ways to do that. And so that's a conversation we have. We've got folks, we just had a meeting this week that represent the state parks. I'm part of the Vermont Park and Recreation Association. So working about educating. One of the hardest things this time of year is that those locations are not staffed. So people are going, parking wherever they want because there's no one to regulate that, doing whatever they want. There's not checks to make sure life jackets are even on board vessels. And so it's really a piece of educating the public in any channels we can about those dangers.
Yeah, I just wanted to say our fire and rescue spends a lot of time on water rescues for this reason. You know, we all hope it's kind of something that's rarely used, but it's a new thing. So,
yeah, we communicate. Mike Cannon from Urban Search and Rescues on our committee as well, and we're constantly talking about how to get this word out and just make sure people know.
All set? Representative Casey and then Representative Burt.
It doesn't do anything to the ice fishermen, right? The ice fishermen don't have to walk around with them.
Correct.
Okay. Good.
Representative Burt.
I know over the winter, there were a couple of things, I don't know whether it was radio programs, whether it was Vermont Edition, whatever, talking about the dangers of shoveling snow. You know, making sure, you know, that you take care, especially if you've had any heart condition. And I was wondering about the same thing, like going on Vermont Edition to talk about this issue. It's probably something they'd be interested in, you know, even for half the program. You know, other ways to get that information out. So it's, you know, I heard something like 2 or 3 times over the winter, people talking about this. And so it sort of sticks after you hear it a little bit. And I think people are not so aware about the dangers of cold water.
Mm-hmm. And we talk a lot, we'll start hearing about the swift water right now because of the snow melt and if it rains. And so unfortunately, as with many things, when there's a tragedy, being the aquatics director at the YMCA, WCAX, WPTZ will reach out. And we start seeing that late May, June about general swimming safety or swimming at like the potholes. And so we do have access to various news outlets to be able to get the word out, frankly, all winter.
Representative Keaton.
Is there any penalty for not doing this within the statute?
There wouldn't be, really enforcement would be game wardens. But again, a lot of those are not staffed or very low staffed this time of year. So that's why there's sort of no financial component to this. It would really just be an education about how to keep yourself and your friends and family safe.
Got it. Thank you.
And when the word says, well, underway. So if you're just floating, is that underway or is this talking about underway meaning not on the dock?
Not on the dock. And so if you're in the water on the vessel and it's open, so if you're in a kayak and you've pushed off from the dock, I would have to have it on and secure.
And the other part about, I guess, open deck, if it has any kind of cabin or any kind of inside, outside, you don't have to worry on the inside and any kind of a.
Correct, which would be similar to how the law is stated right now for kiddos.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. Thanks for staying for the question.
No, thank you so much. Thank you for all the questions. I appreciate it.
Learning aids. Hey, sure. Come on.
Oh, hey.
First time testifying. Courage for everybody.
Let's go. Okay. That's right.
All right, Gabrielle, is this okay to share? Okay. Does mine stop?
Very good. Oh, they're not gonna make it down the other side. You're going too loud. They're not. You're right, they're not. This reminds me, you're doing a great start. We need Senator Clinton in the chair again. He's the best.
You know, that's.
Yeah. Need to bring him up.
Thank you.
Gabrielle, can I have a little TA for a minute?
We got it.
It's sitting in last.
Part of the educational piece.
This is the meeting.
Yeah,
Karen.
actually, you had it right, because if you want to bring that on screen.
Screen up.
Yeah. And then,
Oh, I just.
Yeah, not pick it up.
yeah, just.
There you
Email.
Refrigerators.
Mm.
Got 100 different ones.
These are good.
You gotta clean out.
Good living. Outdoor, good living.
You set up they had us, well, we might get there, that's all.
Public park.
There.
Yeah, they did.
And then you might like pull it up, you still do it, don't Yes.
It was more than that.
We're very sociable, it'll be like.
Yeah.
They had that.
You got my rule, and close are optional. That's what I hear anyway.
I want to take advantage of that rule.
All right.
You got some chocolates ready to go?
All right.
Yeah.
Next to me, Dave Ravoni. I'm Al Johnson. I'm the voting law administrator for the state of Vermont. I work for the Department of Public Safety. I'm embedded with the state police. I'm a civilian employee of the Marine Division of the State Police. My role in my current position is to oversee our recreational boating safety grant. All the states and territories get a grant from the Coast Guard for boating safety activities. Vermont gets about $1 million a year from the feds. And then we match with $1 million in state funds or state eligible activities. And the big part of the RBS grant that we do is we oversee the vessel numbering system with our partners at AOT. We conduct enforcement patrols and saturation patrols on 4th of July and that sort of thing. Search and rescue activities. We oversee the boater education program for the state, both in person and online through a third-party vendor. And then we maintain the marine casualty system for Vermont that the Coast Guard puts out there for us, and that's how they collect injury data related to boating. So the goal today, we talk about, and always on the water is just making sure everybody gets home safely from a day on the water. That's always my goal. I'm a lifelong boater. I've been a surfer since I was 15. I grew up at the beach on Cape Cod, swimming, sailing, all the things. And, in some places you're taught that from a very young age, and boating safety is just part of who you are. And I'm lucky enough that I have all that background. But in a rural state like Vermont, it's a little different. There's a lot of folks that are just very occasional users. So I go to summer camp and have great experiences, and they learn to swim and sail and water ski and all that sort of thing. And other folks don't have those skills. So we just want to make sure everybody gets home. The reality is in cold water season, it's extremely dangerous to be on the water. There's fewer boaters on the water, which leads to much slower response times. Due to its significantly higher thermal conductivity and density, water drains body of heat 25 times faster than air. So that's if you're standing outside in your swim trunks in 20-degree air, 30-degree air. If you get in 35-degree water, 5% faster, very quick. In a cold water immersion scenario, every second counts. And as Jess mentioned, life jackets it buys us time for survival. With slow response time, any minute you're in the water where you're not struggling and you're still afloat is beneficial. So the physiology of this piece is what we call the 1-10-1 principle. It talks about cold shock, cold incapacitation, and then how hypothermia fits into the equation. It's all up there on the slide, but in that first minute that you're in the water, your body, when it's immersed in water below 50 degrees, just gasps. You will audibly gasp. It's very easy to aspirate water. And it really only takes about a pint of water aspirated into your lungs for you to drown. It's very quick. It's very deadly. If you get past that first minute, you have, for the most part, 10 minutes, maybe a little longer, before your muscles and the rest of your organs start to change in cold water. Your ability to control your body is very limited. People who say they're strong swimmers don't stand a chance of blasting in the water. And then hypothermia is the final stage of this. It can be an hour later to be hypothermic, but in real cold water, most people never make it that far, unfortunately. This is just kind of the average water temperatures. I know you're talking about dates, whether it should be May 1st or June 1st. That magic number here of 50 degrees Fahrenheit, once we're down below 50 degrees, it's cold. I'm a NOAA weather radio fan. We talked about notifications about cold water immersion. They put that stuff out there, but I listen to it every morning as I get ready as kind of habit. The lake water in Lake Champlain this morning is 37 degrees, and we're entering the second week of April. I don't think June 1st is a big reach as far as extending the date period. So effectiveness wise, it's a high fatality rate without life jackets, period. Data indicates that approximately 75 to 87% of drowning victims, and this is in any kind of water, in boating accidents, were not wearing a life jacket. And that's per the Coast Guard. That's per that data that we submit and all the other states put out there. I've got a data project that I will reference later where we looked at Vermont injury data. And Vermont, the rate was 75% of the folks who perished on the water during the evaluation period were not wearing life jackets. So it's just a very common number. Life jackets save lives. The Coast Guard estimates 80% of fatalities could be prevented if people were wearing life jackets. Accessibility versus wear, simply having a life jacket on board, which is a lot of people's response. I've got it on board, I'm safe. It's not really sufficient in cold water because the shock and muscle failure happen too quickly. And putting a life jacket on in the water, I would dare anybody to try it. It's really fun to watch in the summertime, watch somebody try and put a life jacket on in the water, but it's very difficult to do. It's kind of like your seatbelt, if you're proactive with your seatbelt, you put it on, when you start the car before you go out the driveway. And that's a prevention activity. It's a public health exercise too. And if you think about how quickly an accident happens in a car, you don't have time to put your seatbelt on in the middle of an accident to prevent something from going wrong. And it's the same thing on the boat. And the problem with a boat, it's more complicated than an automobile because in a car, the roadway is not moving. On a boat, everything is moving potentially. So it's very difficult, almost impossible. And then the behavioral impact, research indicates that mandatory legislation is the most effective way to affect behavior change in adults who are otherwise unlikely to wear life jackets consistently. The Coast Guard does a life jacket wear study. It's an observational study. They do it every couple of years. They do it throughout the country. And the life jacket rates kind of go like this. It's to the moon until they're 12 because that's mandatory wear. And then as kids become teenagers, it starts to go down. And it goes down and down and down as people age. And the worst offenders are people like me who are about 60 years old, to be honest. Safety versus convenience. So the false sense of security, you folks already addressed. It's warm out there in Shelburne Bay. It's 70 degrees out and the water is 40 degrees and there's people in kayaks and canoes, especially stand-up paddle boards, craft that are always likely to tip and people wind up in the water. You talked about the Lewis Creek incident. That's so sad back in 2021. The next year, in April of 2022, in Lake Seymour, there was an incident of two young men were in a two-person kayak at a pond, or a lake, Lake Seymour. Air temperature is 35, the water temperature was 39, and they went out paddling, no life jackets. They wound up in the water and they both perished. Heavy clothing is a trap. In cold weather, boaters wear heavy layers that become waterlogged. It just drags you down quicker, and it makes a life jacket essential for any assistance you can get to a point.
Those people have life preservers on?
No, they were at a vacation property they were visiting from out of state, so they had no idea about the environment, the danger, that sort of thing, and their host did not inform them of what they're up against, basically. So in October 2024, we had a heavy clothing incident down in Rude Pond. We had a hunter who was out at the beginning of duck season, October, and the air was 50 and the water was 40. He's out on his kayak duck hunting, and he went over the side and perished in Rude Pond. So there's just a lot of things that can happen. And, the last bullet here, the increased danger for paddlecraft is significant. Just mentioned it. I mentioned it. My national organization has a task force just to deal with the paddling community because of the number of deaths and the number of incidents with that community. It's just super high risk. This is just a map of the states that currently have laws in place. This is a slide from my national organization. It's called NASWA, the National Association of State Boating Law Administrators. It's basically the me from every state and any other staff that are funded by the Recreational Boating Safety Grant. So mostly Northeast and New England. Similar conditions exist out in Montana and Wyoming and North and South Dakota and the backwaters and Minnesota and all that kind of thing. They don't have laws in place there. And it's a big country. So policy and practicality continued. Proactive protection, the laws protect boaters during the most dangerous time of the year. Simplifying compliance, a mandatory wear law removes ambiguity, ensures all passengers are protected rather than relying on a quick decision-making during a panic or an incident. We basically want the safe choice to be the easy choice. And, putting a law in place kind of helps people make the safe choice more often than not. Reduce burden on rescuers. A life jacket increases visibility in the water because most of them are brightly colored. It makes rescue operations faster, and it makes it safer for emergency personnel. We were talking about recovery earlier. One of the groups that gets equipment for my grant is the underwater recovery team, the dive team at the state police. And for that group to go on the water when it's really cold, it's dangerous. They train for it, but I never like to see them do it if they don't have to. And different parts of Lake Champlain, for instance, are 300 feet deep. So if somebody in a bigger boat has a problem in deep water, the recovery would be very, very difficult. And then enforcement, although enforcement is not a primary goal here, Vermont game wardens are often on the water or at boating access points and ramps and that sort of thing. And they can conduct life jacket compliance verifications during like waterfowl hunting checks, fishing checks, and if they see kayakers at the ramp, kayakers, canoers, those sort of things. And then number 5 is a success story. Mark Schleppenheiser is the BLA in Pennsylvania. He's a close colleague of mine, and they started a law in 2012. Pennsylvania's mandatory life jacket law has significantly improved boater safety by requiring jackets on small boats, canoes, kayaks from November 1 to April 30. The regulation targeting cold water shock has cut the cold water boating fatalities by approximately 50% since the law was put into place, with cold weather death percentages dropping from 58% to 17%. So, how many people did we save? How many people would have perished? How many people had enough time bought for them that they were able to be saved? Are some of the questions that this answers. I also do some work with another organization where I get funding from the Safe States Alliance. Before I worked for the state police, I worked for 15 years for the health department in chronic disease prevention. And the health department, in collaboration with VSP, conducted this data safety project funded by the Safe States Alliance, and we completed it in 2025. There's a link there on the slide. And it goes through the data that we put into the Coast Guard, and then it tries to broaden the data field of what we're really looking at. The Coast Guard data is only really a small slice of what's really happening on the water. What we found is that the incidence and accidents on the water is 10x to what gets reported to the health department or to the Coast Guard. So we used a bunch of different data sources to kind of verify the number and look at the outcomes. And then there's just a tab here of other boating safety information if you want to learn some more. The boating statutes for Vermont, Title 23, which you all probably have looked at. Vermont use of public waterways, that is managed by the Department of Environmental Conservation. My state police marine unit has a web page that has a lot of boating information. Fish and Wildlife also has boating information and fishing information. The National Association of State Boating Law Administrators, my organization, there's a lot there. And then the Coast Guard Boating Safety Branch is listed there as well. That's all I have today.
So what would you say the percentage paddlers and canoeists and kayakers during the peak seasons who wear flotation,
So
personal flotation devices?
that's a good question. It is a much lower number than I'm comfortable with. I can't give you an exact number. I look at all of the patrol logs from the state police officers. Our other sub-grantees on the water are the Brent County Sheriff's Department, Colchester Police Department, and the state troopers and the game wardens. And I see a lot of them that are, they give out a lot of warnings, which, officers have the latitude to give out a warning or to give a ticket. And because the paddle community is so impacted with serious injuries and fatalities, I would much rather see them give out tickets to kind of say, hey, this is serious, instead of them just saying, okay, I'll have it next time. And they're like, oh, I got away with it. And they don't have a life jacket next time either. So it's a large number.
I mean, actually wearing the device, not just having it.
Yeah, I would say as far as wearing goes, I would say definitely less than half.
Okay.
Casey.
Why not, hate to be extreme, but why not just outlaw paddling altogether during those months? Wouldn't that be safer yet?
Outlawing things that people do for recreation, I think would be a problem. Would it create safety? Sure.
The paddlers are the ones that, I don't agree with what I'm saying, but I'm just saying, if you're looking for total safety, because we're all trying to save everybody from evolution, so to speak, and I don't just, it kind of makes sense. If you're gonna go that route, why not just go suggest to people not to go paddle at all because the water is cold?
So
just doesn't,
yeah, prohibition, I don't think works in a lot of cases, as we've learned over history. As far as outreach and communications goes, my organization puts out a press release and social media posts that will happen in 2 weeks. And it's a cold water immersion warning. Jess talked about it a little bit. NOAA also does broadcasts about cold water immersion in the spring. And it's a commonly referred to topic, but as we found out earlier this week, people are on the water. This time of year, people who are whitewater kayakers are thrilled because it's not a trickle. There's actually some water moving that they can have some fun on. It is pretty dangerous this time of year with the snow melt. You've got higher water levels, and that brings any kind of loose trees, branches into the waterway. So all kinds of bad things can happen with that, but they're having the time of their lives. So prohibition's a pretty tough sell.
Well, there was a lady a couple of weeks ago that drowned on the Memorial River, and I supposedly guess she had a vest on and everything, so must have got overcome with the cold.
A lot of things can happen. You get upside down on a kayak.
They seem tippy.
Yeah.
I've been in one before, they're real tippy. I'm not real comfortable in them, no matter what time of year it is.
As a water person and a large person, I'm usually comfortable in most scenarios in the water. Kayaks, I'm very careful. And then there's the 2-person kayaks that you can get on. I refer to them as the marriage tester. And you can have one really skilled paddler kind of in charge, and then one person who is not very skilled. And that person that doesn't have a lot of experience can really doom both people vessel.
Representative White?
Yeah, I'm in support of this. And I would just go back to the dates again. So I think if we are going to have legislation, we need to feel pretty comfortable about the dates, because I think people are going to assume that, okay, May 1st, I'm safe not wearing my life vest. So, if temperatures in May are still in like the 40s or 50s, maybe it's June 1st to October 1st. Because again, I think we are suggesting to the public that you're going to be safe when we are not legislating that you wear life jackets. So let's make sure that the situations that you took us through, that those aren't happening when we are saying it's okay to not be wearing a life jacket.
Sure. And wearing a life jacket is as easy as wearing something like this. This is an inflatable life jacket. Like I can wear it here and testify and work my computer and my fishing pole. And these can be set to manual or automatic. So there's a sensor in there. If it senses water, it will inflate. Or you can pull the handle, and I won't do it because this one is actually, it's got a safety cartridge in it. So I'm not going to pass it around. I don't want anybody to fail today. It could be a career memory for somebody. But yeah, I think June 1st makes sense. As far as infrastructure and people on the water, the state police and Fish and Wildlife start patrolling May 15th. We go May 15th to about October 15th. So there are some more people on the water. There are not wide eyes on the water. I put my boat in personally around the first week of May. I'm a member of a small boat club, so my boat goes from the storage place where it is at the marina to a mooring, and I go ashore. I get it in the water and tinker, and I'm not really out going for boat rides that often unless it's a beautiful day. And my boat has an enclosed cabin, so there's some extra safety there. But I think June 1st is not a bad idea.
Representative McCoy, Representative Keiser.
So what are those surrounding states? What are their dates?
Most of I don't have them memorized. Most of them are October 1st to May 1st. Massachusetts is October 15 to May 15. Things you really need to think about is freshwater versus saltwater, warm versus cold. The Atlantic Ocean is cold to warm up in the spring.
Yes,
for sure.
it's cold.
Yeah, it's not as cold as,
It's cold.
we talk about Lake Champlain a lot. Lake Champlain today is 37 degrees. Joe's Pond is not 37 degrees today because the ice is still there, so it's a sliding scale, and we're not just talking about one body of water. We've got hundreds of lakes and ponds throughout the state that people use a lot.
The Atlantic Ocean. Hampshire, Mass, if you're aware. It's cold.
It is.
It is cold. In the summer, it's cold. So,
I call it invigorating.
yes. My ankles freeze.
That too. So as this proposed legislation says that open boats, is that what I read?
That's what it says.
Okay, so now in those dual kayaks, they are not, they would be where you fit in and they're closed?
No, when they say an open boat, they're talking about anytime you're on an open deck or open space. So the boat that's not an open boat would have a cabin to run the boat from, to be out of the elements completely. And it would have sides, it would have a roof, it would have a
Right,
windshield,
right.
that sort of thing.
Right, okay, but I guess what I'm envisioning is a dual kayak. And there's a hole in it this big, each two of them, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not open.
Right. Yeah, so the
Well, no,
interpretation.
I get it, no, I'm just arguing technicalities.
Yep.
Yeah, and so, I mean, though, under the wording here, I believe they would not be covered, or it would be a gray area.
Correct. Yeah, and I am not real fond of the open deck language. I think it should be any vessel that's out there, because what can happen when you're on the water? And size limitations are this similar kind of conversation. When you're on the water, the bigger boat you have, the more safe or, undefeatable you feel sometimes. So you'll go further out onto a lake or body of water. And just like a small boat, you can forget to put the drain plug in. Just like a small boat, somebody can go over the side. And if it's rough, you have to rescue them in not ideal conditions. So the structure of the boat has nothing to do with once a person's in the water, what the outcome is. So I'm very fond of it being all boats and the limitation to length, because once you're out there, anything can go wrong.
Representative Casey.
Isn't there a law now that for under a certain size boats that you have to have a life vest anyways?
So everyone, you have to have a life jacket for every person on board.
Okay.
Period. There's no mandatory wear by vessel except for personal watercraft or under 12 years of age.
I'm in support of this here for, for kids.
Mhm.
But I mean, I don't feel comfortable going out and telling adults what to do. I mean, people make personal choices all the time that don't always work out. I don't think Big Brother's always going to be there to save everybody. And I just,
True.
if it's a poor life choice, let it be the person's poor life choice. It's just, but the kids, yeah, I agree with kids. They should definitely have them on. I wouldn't recommend a kid going kayaking either during those dangerous times of the year.
True.
Considering people that are experts at it, that have all the safety stuff, still wind up in not a good situation.
Yeah, something to always remember is when something goes wrong, first responders are put into the equation, whatever the conditions. So you're introducing risk to those folks as well. As far as mandatory wear for who, when, as an example, Transportation Canada is currently going through an exercise where they're contemplating mandatory wear for everyone all year for recreational boating. It doesn't impact fisheries like on the Maritime Pacific Northwest, but for recreational boating, they're exploring mandatory wear for everybody. Is it a different country? Absolutely. But it's, we all wear a seatbelt when we get in our car because it's the law. And we've all seen the videos of what happens when somebody gets into an accident without a seatbelt. And this is an educational opportunity.
Representative Burke.
Yeah, I was just gonna say what you said is that, it's your personal choice, but you are putting rescue workers at risk.
Yeah, and just some of the kind of boneheaded decision making that I've seen. So we have a dog that loves to do retrieves in the water and, and is Labrador with a big thick coat and is happy to get out there pretty much when the ice goes off, appears to be, not even notice the cold. Anyway, I remember last year, probably coming up on May, I was throwing the things to the dog in the water and there was a man on a inflatable with an infant strapped to his chest. And I stuck around until I saw him wrap up.
Yeah.
But I could not believe that scene.
Right. And people are, what you're talking about
Yes.
is these risky times of year that we're talking about. And that person happened to be lucky that you were on the shore and had eyes on them.
And it was
cared
it
enough
was-
to make
it
sure
was
they made it to
jockey.
shore.
I mean,
Yeah.
this was a very athletic, fit looking guy, but then I'm sure the lure of the water and all of that on that kind of a day, but we had an infant strap, like on a snuggly thing strapped to his chest. And anyway, that I became a bit of a convert at that moment. It's just like, holy smokes.
Yeah, the incidence of death with stand-up paddleboards is one of the data points that is significantly on the rise. Because you get a number of things happening on the water. You get people on a paddleboard without a life jacket. And then you get people on a paddleboard without a life jacket, and the paddleboard doesn't have a leash that's attached to their ankle. And this happens a lot in the Rockies, anecdotally. The water in the mountain lakes in the Rockies barely gets above 50 degrees all summer. And there are lots of state parks that rent paddleboards and kayaks and canoes. When people go out and they don't have a leash, they don't have a paddleboard. And as soon as the wind gets in the mountains, it kind of spirals around sometimes and creates some waves. It knocks people off. The water's cold, so they get the shock. paddleboard's gone. And I get a weekly report from the Coast Guard of all the incidents that are reported throughout the country. And the number of paddleboard fatalities in the Mountain West is shocking. It really is. And, you know, we see a lot of folks, I go to Mounts Bay a lot. I talk to Steve Gutierrez, who runs the Colchester Patrol Boat pretty frequently, and he stops a lot of paddleboarders and does the educational piece with them because they are at such risk. And it's easy to fall off a paddleboard when a larger boat goes by, even a couple hundred yards away. That wake will knock an inexperienced paddler into water.
Representative McCoy.
Yeah, so I think, you know, I'm in agreement with this. I grew up by the water on Long Island Sound. I've never been in a boat that I didn't have a life jacket. I don't care what time of year, life jacket was on my person. And I canoe up here with my husband. We always have our life jackets on. But I think the biggest thing is going to be the PR campaign. You know, you hear about, you know, occasionally somebody, but it's gotta be a PR campaign, like big time. Like I remember seatbelts when it first came. It was like, there was a song about buckling up for the seatbelt. I think this same thing has to be. I mean, I see paddleboarders and kayakers all the time on lakes that do not have. I don't understand why they don't have a life vest on. And say, why don't you have a flotation device?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
chances are you're going over, especially in the wake of the boat. I just don't understand. So I think it's got to be a massive PR campaign.
Yeah, through our work with the Water Safety Action Committee, Jess and I, one of our initiatives this year is recruiting new members. I recently got the lead from State Parks, a gentleman who runs the Burton Island State Park, and that whole region is the lead for water safety. And the state parks are a good opportunity for educational opportunities because they have so many on the water sites. They rent canoes, kayaks, and paddleboards. They have boat ramps, they have swim areas. They're a prime candidate. And the other person that recently joined this month was the operations director from the Vermont River Conservancy. They have a good relationship with the paddling community. So through this Water Safety Action Committee, because we're a small state, that is that amplification opportunity that we have to us. So if we create messaging, we all share it, we all cross-post it on social media and that sort of thing. We're kind of meeting the most people where they're at, because a lot of the groups that I belong to online where I cross-post things are like Champlain boaters and, you know, all the people who we're trying to get who are water people. So that opportunity is ripe and it's available to us. And I think we need to be diligent in our efforts for sure.
All right, any more questions? If not, thank you very much, Alan, for coming in.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
And we're gonna be, we need to talk about section 20 briefly. If you'd like to add some comments on that, sure.
Yeah, it's just a language cleanup exercise.
Section 23.
Comply with federal.
Celebrate validation stickers.
Yeah, it's the validation sticker language. This was from a corrective action plan item that we are under from the Coast Guard for our vessel numbering program. And the easiest way to do it is look at the visual here. Two of these and this flag on the top of this page. This is our handbook of boating laws. It shows how you're supposed to put the numbers on. And the Coast Guard wants us to specify that the validation sticker is within 6 inches of the letters and numbers. And on the port side, it's to the bow side or the left side of the numbers. On the starboard side, it's to the right. If you can't remember port from starboard, remember the port is left. And if you have trouble with the lights, port line is red, and that's the left running light on your boat too. And red right returning, that's for the boats.
I'm not a cat.
Unlike any, they say, right.
So,
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so this language says validation stickers shall be placed within 6 inches preceding the registration number. But isn't that showing?
On the port, that's on the port side.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
okay.
And it's after the number on the starboard side. But the 6 inch piece was missing and the Coast Guard was being particular, I guess, with the review.
Basically, we're doing that now, so. it's just-
Yes, yeah. We're just cleaning that up.
Sure.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
So we're gonna, after 4, we're coming back